This edition of MacVoicesTV is brought to you by Smile, the makers of Text Expander, Text Expander Touch, PDF Pen, PDF Pen Pro, and Disklabel. Find out more and download demo versions at smilesoftware.com. Welcome to MacVoicesTV at BlogWorld in Los Angeles. I'm Chuck Joyner, and folks, this is Chuck Joyner on my show Together Alone.
No fighting, right?
No fighting.
We're going to be good.
Allison, thanks for coming.
All right. I'm very excited to be finally on the show.
Well, I'm a little embarrassed by this because it's taken us a year to do this.
Right. We had it on the agenda at the last time at the last Macworld and never got around to it.
Yeah, and don't ask me why, and then the past year has been crazy for me. But what precipitated this is last year at BlogWorld, you did a session that really blew me away on accessibility and people that have physical challenges and accessing the kind of content that you and I create. And I wanted to ask you about some of that, how you got so interested in it. I know you have a session coming up at Macworld in January about it. Where did this all come from? Because as far as I know, you don't have any of those challenges.
Yeah, I don't, Chuck. But a couple of things happened. My mother does happen to be blind, and that has a little bit to do with it. But I met a couple of people at, actually at the very first BlogWorld, I met Daryl Shandro of the Blind Access Journal, and he and I just started talking, and somehow coincidentally the next year I met Slough, who's also blind. In fact, sat down in the exact same place with Slough, and just started talking to people about what they could do with Macs in particular. That's what kind of takes it up a notch, is that the Mac and now iOS 4 and iOS 5 on the iPhone are just incredibly accessible, and it's fascinating what they can actually do. But in that session, what I tried to talk about was our responsibility on the other side. There's little things you can do that make it crazy easy for somebody to navigate your site when they're blind or hearing impaired, or different things you can do, and they're not even hard. But if we don't know about it, we don't think to do it.
And that's the part I'm a little embarrassed about, because we don't always think about this kind of thing. We're usually kind of wrapped up in A, content delivery, and B, the technical side of things to make sure it all works just at our level, whatever our level is, and don't think about people that may have different needs.
Right. Well, don't feel too bad. After that session, a guy walked up to me, and he actually works for the United States government in the the American with Disabilities Act. His job is to make sure that all of the sites are accessible, and he had visual only CAPTCHAs on their websites to get in to learn about the Americans with Disabilities Act. So something that was completely impenetrable to the blind, and he didn't even know about it. And boy, was he embarrassed. But he fixed it right while he was sitting there. He changed them. So that was kind of cool. I felt like, we made a little impact. That was neat.
So give us a quick idea of some of the things that we can do as content producers. And if the audience out there is interested in this, that's great. If not, I still think they should be aware of it. It sort of opens what you do every day to a different vision and a different, I guess, maybe I won't go quite so far as to say responsibility, because it's your choice as to whether to do it, but you will open your content to a new audience.
Well, that was one of the things I did try to talk about at BlogWorld last year, was at least at the time, there were as many visually impaired and hearing impaired people in the world as there are on Facebook. Now, Facebook's gone a couple 100 million farther than that today, but if you think about that as bloggers and podcasters, we're always trying to increase the volume of our audience. Why would you purposely shut that audience out if you knew how to let them in? One of the things I do, and not everybody can do this, my podcast has a script that I'm reading from, so I post that on my blog as a blog. In fact, somebody made fun of me yesterday in a session, one of the speakers, because I said I have a 5,000-word blog post every week. And she said, well, I might cut that up a little bit because I don't think people's attention span's that good. But it turns out the deaf read my blog. And there's actually people who don't want to listen to me, but they like the content I produce, so they read. And one of the things that really excited me was when a deafblind guy wrote to me and said, hey, I read your blog. It's awesome. Really, full-on Helen Keller. This guy can't see, can't read, or can't hear, and he sits there with his Braille display and his old Mac Mini, and he reads my blog. And I kid around that I'm going to do my blog forever just for that guy, But one of the things they taught me was really, really simple. I had all these headings that I would just make bold. Well, it turns out if you use the heading tag in your HTML instead of just making it bold, it looks like it's bold, but it's actually something you can jump to when you're using the voiceover accessibility. You can flick with your fingers and get straight to those headings. So it's something as simple as that made a difference to those people. The biggest thing for the blind is don't do a visual CAPTCHA. Just don't do it. There's something called reCAPTCHA from reCAPTCHA.net, I think. created by Carnegie Mellon University, and it gives you an audio one too. I mean, it's free. You can add it to your site. It's a piece of cake.
And a lot of these, as I understand it, I mean, that I publish on WordPress. I'm not sure if you do or
Yes.
not. Okay, but there are plugins out there that do a lot of this stuff for you as well.
Oh, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah,
Like
I think,
for the captions?
yeah, that give different options that would be automatically included as an option.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I don't actually end up using a capture at all, but that does help. I'm just starting to learn a little bit about physical mobility issues, and that's something I didn't know about. A guy named Patrick Hennebree has been advising me, and he's great because he's not. None of these guys are like, oh, poor, pitiful of us. They're like, hey, dude, if you do this, this really works good for us. You know, it's not about making you feel bad or pity or anything like that. It's all about, hey, this is really fun for us, but if you tweaked it a little bit this way, that's what could do better for us.
Do I remember correctly you talking something about subtitles as well for videos, so that they could be listened to as opposed to,
Yeah.
what I'm messing it up, but you know what I mean.
Right. This was a really subtle one I never would have thought of on my own, but I think it was Slough who told me about it. If you use the embed tag on your for a video on your website, the Flash player that gets embedded isn't accessible to the blind. They can't find the play button. It isn't there for them. So, but if they're looking at actually on YouTube, it is there for them. So what I do now is I put a little tiny sentence underneath it that says, using a screen reader, click here, and that takes them right into YouTube. Like, you don't want most people leaving your site, but if this person can't see it at all or hear it at all, that's really lame. So then they can go over there, they can click play, and they can hear it. And that's something, I mean, I wouldn't have known that didn't exist, you know?
Now, do you know if that's been addressed with HTML5 players or not?
I don't know. I'm not sure how it gets embedded when you do the embed tag. I'm not sure how that does work.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But, well, this is the whole point, though, that we don't know, that there are a lot of us that are out there authoring a lot of content, and we're not aware of this, so we need to be more aware.
Right. And that's kind of the reason I'm doing this blindfolded session at Macworld. I'm really excited about.
Wait, stop. Blindfolded?
I'm doing a session called Blindfolded, and the idea is I'm going to demonstrate iOS on the iPhone or iPad, probably iPhone, and OS 10 on the Mac, and I'm going to demonstrate how you can navigate around the operating system, open emails, read emails, that sort of thing. We'll see how much I can do by the time I get there. I've only got about 7 weeks left, and it's a lot harder than I thought. These guys said, oh, it's a piece of cake, Allison, you'll learn it, no problem, but there's this rotor, there's all these crazy things you got to learn, but it's come along. Every couple of days I learn something. I go, oh, okay, I get that now. The iPhone's pretty easy. OS 10 I'm having a little more trouble learning how to do, but it's kind of like immersion in a language, right? You can take Spanish one night a week, and in 14 years you'll be able to conjugate verbs, or you can just go live in Spain for 3 months. So I'm going to walk the talk, and I'm gonna do it.
That's interesting. Now, are you using any particular hardware, or are you just using stock iPhone, iPad, whatever?
It's all stock. Now, some of these guys are cheating. They're using Siri now on the new iPhones. It's like, okay, it's real easy to send an email if you just go, Siri, send an email to Chuck and tell him I'll meet him at 2 o'clock. Come on. That's cheating. I'm going to do it the hard way, where I've got to type and find the options and that sort of thing. So, what's cool is all this stuff is built right in. OS 10, I mean, is just crazy good for the blind right out of the box, and so is iOS.
That's great. And I applaud you for a very unique approach to it, because that represents a lot of time and effort on your part to learn something that hopefully you will never need to deal with, but a lot of people already do.
Right. I'm terrified, actually, that I've agreed to do this, because, like I said, it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. But, hey, it'll be fun. It's learning something new, stretching your brain, you know?
Well, and that's what you did last year at BlogWorld with me. You stretched my brain a little bit. You made me look at things differently. And, going forward, I want to try to address some of those issues for the audience that maybe I'm not able to reach. And it's so important. Not just, we're talking about it like we're really important. And their daily activities.
Just in our own minds.
Well, in our own minds. But there's so many people that this is a daily challenge for them. And, if we can do something that makes sense to help them, man, let's do it.
Yeah, especially since so many of these things are easy. It's not like you have to learn how to do a whole new way of coding or anything. It's just, H3 was my tag. Now that works for them. It's so easy. Or putting that little thing under the video, like you said.
For the people that don't know you, tell us about your show and what all you produce on a regular basis.
Oh, that's right. I didn't say my whole tagline yet, did I?
No, I didn't do it. I figured we'd save it for the end.
Well, my show is called the NosillaCast. It's a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Macintosh bias. A lot of sarcasm on that line, of course. I actually do other stuff, though. Like I had a Windows Phone 7 guy on the show the other day just to mess with people. That was fun. I do stuff about Linux. I've had Larry Bushy from GoingLinux.com on. I have a lot of listener contributions that are pretty interesting. I do a segment called Chit Chat Across the Pond for the second half of the show. Every other week, it's Bart Bouchatz from Ireland from the International Mac Podcast, and he does whatever excites him for that week. It might be photography, it might be security. Does a lot of security stuff. It's really fascinating stuff. And then every other week, it's somebody you have no idea who I'm going to pull out of the hat and have on the show next. So it really mixes it up. So it's a lot of fun. But it's all geek stuff.
Now, I know the question you always get, because I had to ask it the first time I met you.
Why I haven't had you on my show?
Well, that's another question. That's the second question. But the first one is, what is NosillaCast?
It's kind of silly. It's my name spelled backwards. Allison, Nosilla. What's
that tell you, folks?
Hey, but the site is podfeet.com, and that doesn't make any sense either.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't going to go there, because never mind.
I think my whole goal was to never be found on Google with the way I name things. I think that was my strategy, and never find in iTunes that, so in iTunes, actually, it says NosillaCast Mac Podcast, because people said, oh, we don't even know what this is. Oh, well.
Well, if you want to know what it is, go to podfeeds.com, find everything Allison does. She's entertaining at the very least. And I tell you, she also has touched on a very important subject and is kind of leading the charge in some ways. And I really, really applaud you for it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Chuck. I appreciate talking to you.
It's been fun. Folks, we'll be back with more from BlogWorld in Los Angeles. I'm Chuck Joyner, and this is MacVoicesTV. Thanks for watching.